When we talk about health, most people immediately think about diet, about exercise, maybe about supplements, or even about the latest health trend they read somewhere online. But there's one factor that is so profoundly important, and yet it's almost always overlooked, ignored, or treated like it doesn't really matter that much, and that is sleep. The truth is, without good sleep, nothing else works the way it's supposed to. You can eat the best organic food, follow the perfect exercise plan, take every supplement in the book, but if your sleep is broken, short, or irregular, your body simply cannot heal. What most people don't realize is that sleep is not just about rest. It's not just about closing your eyes and lying in bed for a few hours. Sleep is an active biological process. During those hours when you are unconscious, when you think your body has shut down, in reality, it's working overtime. Your brain is clearing out toxins, reorganizing memories, consolidating learning from the day. Your immune system is repairing, your muscles are recovering, your hormones are being balanced. It's like a giant tune-up that happens every single night. Without it, everything begins to slowly break down. Think about it like this. If you get a cut on your hand, your body knows how to heal it. But that repair work happens most effectively when you're sleeping. If you're underslept, the healing slows down. If you go to the gym and work out hard, the muscle growth doesn't happen in the gym. It happens while you're sleeping. That's when the body builds new tissue, restores glycogen, and brings inflammation down. Even your emotions, your ability to feel calm, focused, resilient, are tied to sleep. If you've ever had a night of tossing and turning, you know how the next day feels. Every little problem feels bigger, your patience is thinner, and your mood is unstable. That's not a coincidence, that's biology. Now here's where the problem really begins. In our modern world, we've treated sleep like it's optional, like it's some kind of luxury. We glorify being busy, we brag about getting by on just 4 or 5 hours of sleep as if it's a badge of honor. People will say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. But the irony is, if you don't sleep, you'll get there a whole lot faster, because lack of sleep literally shortens your life. The science is crystal clear. Chronic sleep deprivation increases the risk of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, depression, even cancer. And yet so many of us are walking around every day sleep deprived, thinking it's normal to feel exhausted all the time. One of the fascinating things about sleep is how connected it is to every system in the body. Let's take hormones, for example. When you don't sleep enough, your stress hormone cortisol goes up. And when cortisol is high, your blood sugar rises, your appetite increases, and your body starts storing more fat. At the same time, lack of sleep lowers leptin, which is the hormone that tells your brain you're full, and raises ghrelin, which is the hormone that makes you hungry. So what happens? You crave junk food, you overeat, and you gain weight. Not because you're weak, not because you don't have willpower, but simply because your hormones are completely out of balance from not sleeping. Your immune system also takes a big hit. Studies show that even just one night of poor sleep can reduce the activity of your natural killer cells, which are essential for fighting off infections and cancer cells. That's why when you're run down and not sleeping well, you're more likely to catch colds, get sick, or just feel off. Your body doesn't have the resources to defend itself. Over time, chronic poor sleep makes you far more vulnerable to serious illness. And let's not forget about the brain. When you sleep, something amazing happens. Your brain literally cleans itself. There's a system called the Glymphatic system, and during deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid washes through the brain, clearing out toxins, including beta amyloid, which is associated with Alzheimer's disease. So sleep is literally your brain's housekeeping crew. Without enough of it, those toxins build up, and your risk for neurodegenerative diseases skyrockets. That's why sleep is directly linked to memory, learning, focus, creativity, and long-term brain health. But even with all this science, so many of us still think sleep is negotiable. We stay up late scrolling through our phones, binge watching shows, or catching up on work. We use caffeine to push through the day, then alcohol at night to calm down, and the cycle repeats. We have normalized sleep deprivation as part of modern life, and it's costing us our health. It's costing us our energy, our productivity, our relationships, and in the end, our longevity. I often tell people to think of sleep as a daily prescription. If I gave you a pill that could improve your memory, regulate your mood, balance your weight, reduce your risk of heart disease, boost your immunity, and extend your life, would you take it? Of course you would. Sleep is that pill. But unlike like a pill, it's free. It's built into the design of our bodies. We just have to give it the respect it deserves. And that's why I say sleep is not optional. It's not just something nice to have if you can fit it in. It's the foundation of health. Without it, nothing else works the way it should. Every single function in your body, from your hormones to your immune system, from your muscles to your brain, is dependent on how well you sleep. And when you start to prioritize sleep, when you create the right environment and routine for it, your entire life changes. Your energy comes back, your mood stabilizes, your cravings reduce, your mind sharpens. Sleep is nature's most powerful healing tool. Think for a moment about your phone. Every day you use it for calls, for emails, for scrolling through social media, maybe for navigation, maybe for work. And by the end of the day, if you haven't plugged it in, what happens? The battery dies. No matter how expensive that phone is, no matter how many features it has, it's completely useless without a full charge. Our bodies work the same way. Sleep is the charger. Without it, the battery of your body and mind slowly drains until you're running on fumes. And unlike your phone, you can't just buy a new battery. You only get one. Now, in our modern world, we're living in a way that constantly drains that battery. We're exposed to stress 24/7. We're bombarded with notifications. We're working late hours, and we're glued to screens that emit blue light, tricking our brain into thinking it's still daytime. Our ancestors didn't have that problem. When the sun went down, the world got dark, and their bodies naturally began to prepare for sleep. Today, we've completely disrupted that natural cycle. We stay up past midnight with artificial light, Netflix, TikTok, or late-night emails. Then we expect to wake up fresh, energetic, and sharp in the morning. It just doesn't work like that. What's happening underneath is really fascinating. Your body runs on something called the circadian rhythm. It's like an internal clock built into every single cell in your body that follows a 24-hour cycle. This rhythm is guided by light and darkness, by sunrise and sunset. When the sun rises, your body produces cortisol to wake you up, to give you energy. As the sun sets, your body releases melatonin, a hormone that signals it's time to sleep. But when you expose yourself to screens and bright lights at night, your brain gets confused. It thinks it's still daytime, so melatonin stays suppressed. The result, you don't feel sleepy, even though your body desperately needs rest. You toss and turn, you go to bed late, and when the alarm rings in the morning, you feel like you've been hit by a truck. And here's the kicker. Even if you think you can get by on less sleep, your body is keeping score. You might say, oh, I only need 5 or 6 hours, I function fine. But the research is very clear. Less than 7 hours of consistent quality sleep starts to affect your blood sugar, your metabolism, your cardiovascular system, and even your brain function. Studies have shown that sleep-deprived people perform tasks as if they were legally drunk. Your reaction time slows, your judgment gets impaired, your memory falters. You might not feel drunk, but your brain is literally functioning like it is. The other problem with sleep deprivation is that it's sneaky. The effects build up slowly. You don't notice it in one night. But after weeks or months of cutting corners on sleep, your body falls into a state of chronic stress. Your cortisol stays high, your insulin becomes less effective, and you start craving sugar and processed foods for quick energy. Suddenly you've gained 10 pounds, you're more irritable, and you're exhausted all day. Most people blame it on aging or stress or bad luck. In reality, it's simply the consequence of not letting the body recharge properly. Think also about the emotional impact. When you're sleep deprived, even small problems feel overwhelming. A traffic jam, a disagreement at work, a crying child. These ordinary stressors suddenly feel impossible to handle. Why? Because sleep is where your brain regulates emotions. During deep sleep, the amygdala, the emotional part of your brain, gets balanced by the prefrontal cortex, the rational part. Without enough sleep, the amygdala goes into overdrive, and you react more emotionally to everything. That's why one bad night of sleep can make you feel anxious, moody, or depressed the next day. Multiply that by months, and it becomes a serious mental health issue. And it's not just about mood or energy. Lack of sleep literally increases your risk for serious disease. Chronic poor sleep is associated with obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart attacks, strokes, Alzheimer's, and even cancer. The World Health Organization actually classifies night shift work where sleep is regularly disrupted as a probable carcinogen. That means just messing with your sleep cycle over time can increase your risk of developing cancer. That's how powerful sleep is. But here's the good news. Unlike some complicated medical intervention, sleep is free. It's built into your biology. You don't need a prescription. You don't need a fancy gadget. You don't even need a doctor to tell you how important it is. Your body already knows. You just need to respect the natural rhythm it was designed for. Think about how powerful that is. One simple habit, prioritizing sleep, can literally reduce your risk of chronic disease, improve your brain function, balance your hormones, and extend your life. So when people tell me they don't have time for sleep, I always remind them you don't have time not to sleep. Because if you cut corners on sleep, you will pay for it somewhere else. With your health, with your energy, with your productivity, with your relationships. Sleep is not wasted time. Sleep is the most productive thing you can do for your health. It's the foundation for everything else. Without it, nothing you're trying to achieve, whether it's weight loss, better focus, improved fitness, or longevity, will actually work the way you want it to. And when you begin to see sleep in this light, not as downtime, not as laziness, but as an essential process for healing and regeneration, everything shifts. You stop treating it like a negotiable extra and start honoring it as a daily ritual. Because in the end, sleep is nature's most powerful, most effective, and most necessary tool for creating heal. So let's dig into the real question that so many people ask. Why is our sleep so messed up? Because if sleep is this natural, powerful healing process that every cell in our body depends on, then why are we as a society so chronically sleep deprived? The answer is lifestyle. Modern life is designed to rob us of sleep, and most of us don't even realize it. Take caffeine, for example. Most people think nothing of having a cup of coffee at 4 p.m. or even after dinner. And yes, coffee can give you energy. It can boost your focus, but it also has a half-life of about 6 hours. That means if you drink a cup at 4 p.m., half of that caffeine is still in your system at 10 p.m. Even if you think you fall asleep easily, your sleep quality is affected. You spend less time in deep sleep, less time in REM sleep, and more time tossing in lighter stages. That's why you wake up not feeling refreshed, even though you technically got 7 or 8 hours. Then there's screen time. We live with our phones practically glued to our hands. Scrolling late at night under bright LED screens is like telling your brain, hey, it's noon. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin, that critical hormone that signals your body it's time to wind down. And when melatonin doesn't rise naturally, your circadian rhythm gets out of sync. That's why you don't feel sleepy at 10 or 11 p.m. anymore. Instead, you're wide awake, wired, and suddenly it's 1 a.m. and you're still on TikTok, YouTube, or emails. And let's not forget about the cultural mindset. We've created this toxic idea that being busy and sleeping less somehow makes us more successful or productive. People proudly say, I only need 5 hours of sleep. I can handle it. But let's be real. That's not resilience. That's slow self-destruction. The research is undeniable. Less than 7 hours of quality sleep leads to long-term harm. Your body doesn't just shrug it off. It keeps track. And what you think of as strength or productivity now will show up later as burnout, disease, or even early aging. One of the most damaging habits we have is pushing bedtime later and later. A lot of people go to sleep at midnight or even 1 a.m. thinking, it's fine, I'll just sleep in later to catch up. But here's what most people don't realize. Sleep before midnight is actually more restorative. Our circadian rhythm is designed so that deep healing sleep happens earlier in the night. When you stay up late, you're not just shifting your schedule, you're actually missing out on some of the most important restorative stages of sleep. It's like skipping the most valuable part of the healing process. And this idea of catching up on sleep over the weekend, that doesn't really work. Sleep debt doesn't just disappear. Think of it like a credit card. You can delay paying the bill, but interest keeps adding up. You can't just sleep in on Sunday and expect your brain and body to be fully repaired after a week of short nights. The effects of chronic sleep deprivation accumulate. They alter your metabolism, your mood, your focus, and your immune system. Eventually, the cost is much higher than you imagined. There's also stress. We live in a high-stress world, always on, always connected. Stress keeps cortisol levels elevated, and when cortisol is high at night, your body literally resists sleep. You might lie in bed, exhausted but wired, your mind racing with thoughts, unable to drift off. That's not insomnia. It's your body trapped in fight or flight mode, a biological response that evolved to protect us from danger, but now it's triggered by work deadlines, financial worries, and endless notifications. And then there's food. Late night eating is a major sleep disruptor. When you eat right before bed, your digestion is still active while your body is trying to to switch into repair mode. High sugar or heavy meals spike insulin, which not only interferes with melatonin, but can also cause nighttime awakenings. Add alcohol into the mix and it gets worse. Sure, alcohol can make you drowsy and help you fall asleep faster, but it fragments your sleep, reduces REM cycles, and leads to restless nights. That's why so many people wake up at 3 a.m. after drinking, unable to fall back asleep. Another hidden factor is misalignment with natural light. Our ancestors lived by the sun. They woke up with daylight and went to bed after sunset. Today, most of us spend all day indoors under artificial light and hardly get any exposure to natural sunlight. This confuses the body's internal clock. Without that strong morning light signal, your circadian rhythm drifts, melatonin gets suppressed, and your sleep timing suffers. Simply going outside in the morning, getting natural sunlight in your eyes, can make a dramatic difference in resetting your sleep cycle. The truth is, poor sleep is rarely just bad luck. It's the cumulative result of dozens of small daily habits that add up. The coffee too late in the day, the endless screen time, the chronic stress, the late night snacks, the irregular sleep schedule, the lack of morning light. It's all interconnected, and each one chips away at the quality of your sleep. What's even more interesting is that the body actually fights back when you don't respect its rhythm. Hormones like cortisol, insulin, and melatonin don't just passively adjust to your habits, they start to rebel. Cortisol spikes at night instead of in the morning, leaving you wired when you should be winding down. Melatonin gets delayed, making it harder to feel sleepy. Insulin becomes less effective, leading to higher blood sugar. And over time, this hormonal chaos turns into fatigue, weight gain, anxiety, depression, and chronic disease. So when people say, I don't know why I can't sleep, the answer is often right in front of them. It's not that their body forgot how to sleep, it's that their lifestyle has disrupted the natural design that was built into their biology. Sleep is not a switch you flip, it's a rhythm you align with. And the further you drift from that rhythm, the harder it becomes to get the deep restorative sleep your body is craving. One of the most fascinating things about sleep is the way it connects directly to the brain. For a long time, scientists thought the brain didn't really have a cleaning system like the rest of the body. The liver cleans the blood, the kidneys filter waste, the lungs detox through breathing. But what about the brain? How does the brain get rid of waste? For years, no one really knew. And then researchers discovered something amazing. During deep sleep, a special system kicks in called the glymphatic system. This is basically the brain's housekeeping crew. Here's how it works. When you're awake, your brain cells are tightly packed together, constantly firing, processing information, storing memories. But when you fall asleep, especially in deep slow wave sleep, those cells actually shrink. The spaces between them widen, and cerebrospinal fluid flows through the brain like a cleansing river, washing away toxins, metabolic waste, and proteins that build up during the day. One of those proteins is beta amyloid, the same substance linked to Alzheimer's disease. So sleep is not just about rest, it's literally about brain maintenance. Without enough of it, toxins accumulate, and over years, this increases your risk for neurodegenerative diseases. But it doesn't take decades to see the effects. Even one night of poor sleep can impair your memory and focus. You've probably experienced it. After staying up too late, the next day it's hard to concentrate. You forget where you put your keys. You can't recall details from conversations. You feel foggy. That's not just because you're tired. It's because your brain didn't get the chance to clean itself, organize memories, and reset. Sleep is when your brain consolidates learning. If you study something during the day and don't sleep well that night, why? You're far less likely to remember it. But if you get good quality sleep, your brain actually strengthens those new connections. And this goes beyond memory. Sleep is essential for creativity and problem solving. Some of the greatest scientific discoveries and artistic breakthroughs came after a night of sleep. Why? Because during sleep, your brain processes information differently. It doesn't just replay the day, it reorganizes, connects dots, and finds patterns. That's why sometimes you go to bed stuck on a problem and you wake up with the solution. It's not magic, it's biology. Sleep is the brain's creative workshop. Now let's talk about mood. If you've ever noticed that after a poor night of sleep, you're more irritable, more anxious, or even a little depressed, that's not your imagination. Sleep deprivation alters the way your brain regulates emotions. The amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain, becomes more reactive. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which normally calms and controls the amygdala, becomes less effective. The result, you overreact to small stressors, you feel overwhelmed more easily, and your ability to cope with challenges diminishes. Long term, this can contribute to serious mood disorders. In fact, chronic sleep deprivation is one of the strongest predictors of depression and anxiety. Think also about decision making. When you don't sleep enough, your brain leans towards short-term rewards instead of long-term thinking. That's why sleep-deprived people are more likely to make poor choices about food, money, and even relationships. You crave sugar, processed snacks, and quick fixes because your brain is desperate for instant energy. At the same time, the part of your brain responsible for rational decision making is basically running on low battery. So you grab the donut instead of the salad, the soda instead of water. Over time, this pattern can completely derail your health. And let's not forget reaction time. Sleep is directly tied to how quickly and accurately you can respond. And that's why driving while sleep deprived is as dangerous as driving drunk. Studies have shown that after being awake for 18 to 20 hours, your reaction time and coordination are impaired to the same degree as someone with a blood alcohol level over the legal limit. In fact, the number of car accidents caused by drowsy driving every year is staggering. And it's not just driving. Pilots, doctors, shift workers, anyone making critical decisions, lack of sleep can literally be life or death. But here's something even more profound. When you shortchange your sleep, you're not just tired the next day, you're literally changing the structure and function of your brain. Imaging studies show that chronic sleep deprivation reduces brain volume in areas responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. The hippocampus, which is essential for forming new memories, shrinks. The prefrontal cortex, which manages judgment and self-control, weakens. Over time, your brain ages faster than it should. On the flip side, when you prioritize sleep, your brain thrives. Deep sleep enhances memory consolidation. REM sleep boosts creativity and emotional resilience. And both stages together create a foundation for optimal brain health. You wake up clear-headed, emotionally stable, and more able to handle whatever life throws at you. Sleep literally sharpens your mind. And think about how this connects to aging. We often talk about anti-aging supplements, diets, or skincare routines, but if you want your brain and body to stay young, sleep is the most powerful anti-aging tool you have. Because every night, it's repairing, restoring, and regenerating. When you cut sleep short, you're accelerating the aging process, not just in your skin, but in your brain, your heart, your metabolism. The evidence is so strong that scientists now believe poor sleep is one of the earliest warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. Before memory loss even begins, sleep disruptions are often present. That tells us something critical. If we want to protect our brains long term, sleep has to be a priority.